Hello everyone, this is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. The title of this episode is A Soul Returns to Earth. Before we get started, I just want to mention we have two new patrons on Patreon. The first is 01, who is an Astral Scout, and the second is Francisco Angel V, who is an Astral Master. Now they'll get commercial-free advanced videos on Tuesday, and they'll be able to email me on Patreon directly, asking questions and making comments. If you'd like to join these two great people, along with many others, there'll be a link in the description. So if you recall, in the last episode, I was able to rescue an Irish woman who had murdered her husband, who had abused her awfully. And she ended up hanging herself, committing suicide. And out of desperation and huge depression, she spent the last 100 years or so gradually sinking to the lowest level of the astral, which is the subastral, which I have labeled hell. In that last episode, I was able to help her out of that awful place and bring her back to my professor and rescue her from what I consider an undeserved fate. So, when I left my body a few days ago, I decided I wanted to see what was going on with Mary. So I thought about her, and when I appeared, she was there in deep conversation with my professor. And when she turned to look at me, she said, "Father." And she ran to embrace me, and I embraced her. And I laughingly said, "Look, you can just call me Rick." She said, "Oh, Father Rick." So I said, "You know what? Fine. Father Rick is fine." So I asked her if she wouldn't mind waiting in the corner for a bit. And I went over to talk to my professor. And I just wanted to know what was going on. And he said that they had been taking Mary through a variety of lessons, trying to find out more about her, bringing her up to speed as to what was going to happen now. She had a lot of religious training that she expected to experience, and when that didn't happen, she was confused. So we had to explain to her, or rather, my professor did, that she was going to be given another chance on Earth, and that she would have a number of selections. And she'd be able to choose which of these lives she would experience as a way to, get another chance on Earth. Maybe to do things a little bit better than what happened last time. And after a while, she accepted this. My professor asked me if I'd like to act as an apprentice guide and shepherd Mary through her choice of a lifetime here on Earth. Of course, I was flattered, but I was also a little unsure of myself because I didn't quite know what to do. Now, in Robert Monroe's works, and of course he's the father of modern astral projection, he mentioned that in the astral, you could get a rote, which was a compact amount of information, which one person in the astral could essentially hand another. And in a very short period of time, you could absorb this knowledge. Kind of like when I was in school, there was this rumor going around that if you slept with a textbook underneath your head somehow, that you'd be able to absorb the knowledge. Well, it never worked. I think people just got neck aches and headaches. But on the astral, these rotes are able to bring you up to speed very quickly. So my professor gave me one of these rotes, and I was able to understand very quickly how I could go about this process. Now, I couldn't make the decision for her. All I could do is present these 3 lifetimes, and then she would have to choose. Couple things real quick. remember the nature of time, all time, past, present, and future, is happening at the same time, but on different vibrational energy levels. So it is possible to reincarnate at any time in human history if that time period serves the purpose of your reincarnation. Secondly, if you've got some major, let's use the word karma, with particular soul or souls, you've got to work through that in some way, shape, or form. Some sort of peace has to be established before you can move on. So I think you'll see as I describe Mary's possibilities that there is one central theme that has to be dealt with in all three of them. So when I went over to Mary and told her that I was going to be acting as her guide, she said, "Oh, lovely, Father Rick. Please excuse my Irish accent. I'm just going to try to do my best just to move the story along. So forgive me, especially anybody from Ireland. Forgive me." Okay, so I told her to please hold my hand, and I concentrated on the first lifetime. So we materialized outside of a very poorly maintained, very humble cottage. My thought was that it was in County Cork somewhere. It was the 1780s. She had been born to very poor tenant farmer types. Her old husband, the one that of course she had poisoned, was her father in this lifetime. She looked around the cottage a little bit. She didn't really have a lot of questions on this one. I had to tell her that there was a distinct chance that her father would desert the family and that they would end up suffering and possibly starving before she reached full adulthood. Now, I can't speak definitively. I know it's like, Rick, this is the past. Why can't you speak definitively? Okay, it's the possible past. All I can discuss is prime possibilities. That if the prime events fall into place as we currently see them without any major bypass or alteration in life course, then what I say is the prime possibility will most likely happen. She was very unimpressed with this lifetime and asked to see the second one. Quite frankly, I didn't blame her. So we reappeared. This time we were in a public housing project in Dublin. And I told her that here she was being raised by a single mother in 1995. At this, she was quite shocked. And she said, "Well, did her husband die then?" I said, "Well, she never married." "Oh, so she's a soiled dove, a fallen woman, a Magdalene." I said, I tried to get the idea what she was talking about. Now, I didn't know that Magdalene came from, I thought, Mary Magdalene from the Bible. But I scanned her mind real briefly and I got the concept of what she was talking about. First of all, of course, keep in mind that when Mary died in the 20s in Ireland, having a child out of wedlock was an extremely, extremely shameful thing that went against Ireland's mores. The Magdalenes she was talking about were women who were sent to these laundries called Magdalene laundries. And it was almost a form of slave labor where these women were forced to labor in these laundries, long hours, under cruel conditions and poor food. It was very awful. Ireland ended up apologizing not that long ago for the existence of these things. I think it started with prostitutes going there. But eventually, because they grew, any Irish woman who broke the mores of the day in any way, shape, or form, or just they considered a loudmouth or a troublemaker, but most definitely a woman who had a child out of wedlock was sent to these places. So I said, Mary, no, things are very different now. She actually chose to be a single mother. Mary is like, why would she choose such a thing? The shame and the burden of raising a wee one on her own. I I said, well, it's something that some women uh, choose today, and in modern Ireland there are many single mothers raising children. In fact, if you choose this lifetime, you will most likely also become a single mother, and you'll date your old husband, and he'll be the father of your child. Well, she was extraordinarily shocked to hear that one. And I tried to soothe her, to let her know that these old opinions that she held were no longer the popular ones in Ireland. But she immediately asked to see the third lifetime. So we went on. When we appeared next, we were in Belfast in an apartment, and it was around 2041. And here, a little bit to her shock, I said, "You'd be a male. You were raised by good middle class parents who were loving to you. Now you had some struggles in school because you have dyslexia." She didn't know what that was. So I described to her some of the challenges that people with dyslexia have in learning how to read. But I also mentioned that there are programs nowadays that do assist these people to adjust and to be able to learn to read. She was looking at her perhaps future self, and he was rather tall and dark haired, and so she turned to me and said, "So I'll be a proper man?" I said, "Yes." "With all the bits?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Oh, that'll be grand." Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't even mention the next part because it's not really all that uh, important nowadays. It's just, it's part of living. Um, but I said that, I thought to myself, she's been away for a long time. So I said, well, just to let you know, you have been extensively female in your lifetimes. She said, yes, I have. I said, well, there is a chance that you will be gay in this lifetime. And she said, gay? A gay life would be a marvelous change. I've had such hard lives, and a little joy and gaiety would be lovely. I was kind of left without speech. I said, well, um, yeah, listen, let me introduce you to your uh, fellow person here who is also with you in your home. And we went over to a young man who had blondish type hair and a slighter build. I'd say he was somewhere around maybe 160, something like that, in U.S. pounds. I'm not sure how many stone that is or what have you. Um, and she said, "Oh, he's a lovely man, isn't he?" I said, "Yeah, suppose he is." So he'll be living with me then. I said, "Yes, yes, he will." "Oh, well, that's lovely." I said, yeah, I guess I suppose it is. Um, you know what? The more I thought about it, the more I figured, well, you know what? She'll figure this out. I just was at a loss as to how to get further into. I didn't want to get into the weeds on this. Let's just say that. Next, I said, well, you know that in every lifetime your old husband popped up. Well, this time he's going to be your boss, and he's going to be a very difficult and a very exacting boss. But you'll have an opportunity to make some sort of peace with this individual. So she thought about all three different lifetimes. Number one, the first one, the 1780s, she was in no way interested in. Number two, the life as a single mother, being born to a single mother. While I think eventually she got the idea that it wasn't the shame that it once was in Ireland, I could see she was still having difficulty just absorbing this whole idea that it's okay. I think she's come pretty far over, for the last 100 years. If you think about how quickly she had to come up to speed, but she just didn't like that second one either. So she turned to me and said, well, which one should I choose? I said, I cannot make that decision for you. I said, this is something that you have to choose for yourself. And I can't make that choice for you. So she thought about it, and she thought about it, and she decided to go with number three. And just between you and I think on balance, she probably made the best decision based on what she had to work with. So she's going to end up being born a male child to a good middle-class parents in the Belfast area sometime within the next year. And in 2041 or so, she'll probably be living with, another male. And they'll be cohabitating. And I imagine by then she'll probably figure out exactly what gay means. So good on her. I'm sure he will do well in this next lifetime. Okay, so that was my first shot at being a apprentice guide, if you will. I will have to see how I did next time I project and see what my Astral Guide School professor thinks about my job. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. Share it with those of like mind. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please give me your questions and comments. I always love reading those and answering them. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.